So I'm live now.
Interesting.
Just gonna set myself up and we'll get the ball rolling. Just gonna share all this as usual. Normally takes me a few minutes just to set up and get the wheels in motion so I can post all the links to where they need to go, basically. So thanks for your patience. Alright, so I'm live on here. There we go. So anyone that's on the chat, can you just let me know in the comments that you can hear me before I go any further, because I could just be speaking to myself. Share this. Hiya, Jay, you okay, mate? I hope you're well. Hiya, Jill, you all right? Thanks for coming on. Can you just let me know if you can hear me okay? Before I make a tit of myself, basically. Because it all went a bit Pete-tongue last week at the beginning. So I'm trying to make sure I don't make them same mistakes again. Can hear you loud and clear. Brilliant. Thanks, Lisa. Hope you're okay. Just going to post me links. Pardon me. I'm live. Link down below. Things you got to do, eh? Bloody Facebook. God, it'd help if I copied it, wouldn't it? This is the bit I hate the most. Right, happy days. We're all up and running. Right, so how is everybody? I'm just going to jump in the chat now and see if anyone's commenting. So we've got Jay's in. I hope you're all right, Jay. Thanks for joining last week, mate, and having your input. It was great. You made some good points, and you know, it was great that you seem to enjoy it as well. So thanks for coming on, mate, again. Jill's here. Hope you're well, Jill. Joe's on here, Joe. All good. Can hear you loud and can hear you fine. Thank you, Joe. Lisa's on. Thanks for coming on, Lisa. Leighton's on. Great stuff, mate. Hiya, Sharon. Sharon's on. Hope you're well, Sharon. Nick's on. Judd's on. Lorraine's on. Michael's on. Louise is on. Michael says hello from sunny Los Angeles. Well, I'm glad it's nice and sunny somewhere, mate, because it's absolutely not stopped tipping it down here. So tonight, I've got my guest tonight that's going to be coming on. Is Ray. Now, some of you will know him. He's been in loads of bands. Massive encyclopedia, I'd say, on Manchester music, and he's now he's still in a band playing the bass for YKO, and he's also a DJ he's got a radio show on 106.6, and he'll be joining us today. He's a wealth of knowledge with anything musical, anything to do with like even music in general. It's not just necessarily Manchester music, but Manchester music's pivotal to, like, I think it is to all of us in a way, especially growing up as a kid, like in Salford and in Manchester, the likes of the Stone Roses, Oasis, massive bands, Joy Division, James, the Smiths, the list's endless, Happy Mondays, the list goes on. But it's just one of them things. Manchester was the sort of heartbeat, you know, at one point in time around the 80s and 90s for these kind of bands. You know, the Smiths absolutely took not just the UK but the world by storm. Same with Oasis, Stone Roses, Joy Division. I know it was only short-lived with Joy Division, but they were such an influential band. Absolutely massive. And James, you know, like I say, the list's endless. So we're going to be talking all things. There's no real, how can I put it? There ain't no real sort of script or anything. It's just a free chat. And by all means, if you have any questions for either me or Ray or both of us, drop them in the chat and we'll get round to answering them. But yeah, we're going to sort of go around the Manchester music sort of scene, touching all the topics on the Haçienda, um, just everything sort of Manchester music basically, and we'll probably have a bit of a chat. I hope there's some football fans in here, but it might get a bit into a bit of a United chat as well. So sorry if there is any City fans in the house. Louise says she's a bag of diamonds. Brilliant. My dad said Morrison's finest day. Nice one for coming on, Dad. Rainy's dodgy jokes. Yeah, he's got some great jokes, hasn't he? Ben's in. Hiya, Ben. Are you all right, mate? Hope you're well. You might like this one because you are an encyclopedia as well on your Manchester music, and Ray's into the punk scene as well. Some great bands that came out of Manchester, punk bands. Stardust says, hi everyone, May here. This is Tom Will says, hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. I'm doing great, mate. Thank you. Hope you are too. Yeah, so everyone's having a bit of a chat. Now, here's the tricky bit. I've sent Ray the link, and I'm hoping to get him on in the next few minutes. So if you're watching, Ray, you can click the link whenever you want now, and it should come up on my phone. But if it doesn't work, we're going to have to do what we did last time, where I sort of froze, and I had to sort of re-go back on, which was a nightmare, and restart it. But it's technology, innit? Carol Baldwin's in the house. So we've got quite a few people on now. We've got like 34 people, which is good. Over the next, so just to fill you in on a few things, I'm actually out. I'm editing a video at the minute, but I'm out tomorrow as well. I'm off work for 2 days, so I'm going to be taking a trip into like the Peak District, basically, and over the other side of the moors. And hopefully going to be filming something really, really interesting, and one that I should have done a long time ago that I haven't really got round to doing. Which, well, I can tell you now, it's the plague village of Ian. That's what I'm going to be doing. I was going to do it literally maybe 6 months ago, and I've kept putting it off, and people have been asking me about it. So that's going to be hopefully a quick one out, and it should be done for Halloween. Hopefully drop it on Halloween. I'll try to get it done for Halloween night, so it's going to be a bit spooky in that. But yeah, that's the aim for tomorrow. I'm hoping that the weather's going to be all right, because it is. I mean, we've not had the best weather the last few days, have we? Absolutely pissed it down here yesterday. So yeah, right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to send it to Ray again, and I just hope that it lets me back on and nothing goes wrong. If it does go wrong, please just refresh your page like a few times and then it'll come back on. But I'm going to attempt it now. Paul. Hiya, Paul, mate. You all right? He says, where's your Nike-Cat? And you finally binned it. I've got a couple of Nike-Cats. One of them, the original one, I did bin. And then the other one I wear for work. But Ray's coming on now, so I'm going to add him. Hopefully it all goes well. Hey! You all right, Ray?
All right,
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
yeah, sound, mate.
Oh, good stuff, mate. How are you? Are you okay?
Good, mate. Yeah, you?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate, Tar. So nice one for coming on, mate. I know you're busy in that, but I just wanted to basically pick your brains a bit, about all the music and sort of what you've done in music, and obviously where you're at now with the radio show and everything. So, yeah, I was basically just going to ask you, mate, sort of how you got started in the music, doing your music and everything, and what sort of inspired you first, to sort of pick up the bass and everything to start playing?
Well, for picking up the bass, it started literally when I was 13. I was listening to different types of music, and then suddenly, sort of punk exploded. Like I say, I was 10 at the age of 13, and like a lot of kids, used to monitor records in your bedroom and stuff like that. And then eventually, I got a second-hand Rickenbacker bass, very similar to the one that Ucky used to use in
Oh
Joy
yeah,
Division,
yeah.
the Sunburst colour, and a 10-watt amp, and it kind of just started from there. And then my main inspiration for um, using the bass was John Jacques from the Stranglers. When I very first heard the intro to Peaches, that was it. That was me sold. So it sort of stemmed from there and built from there, really.
Right, brilliant. How did it all So, what was your how old was you when you went into your first band?
Believe it or not, it wasn't until I was actually 21.
Right.
So I spent sort of like 7 or 8 years. I was self-taught.
Yeah.
Can't read any music at all. The only thing I used to read was bass tablatures in books. So I just used to try and practice on me technique using the plectrum or fingers, doing walking blues bass lines and stuff like that. And then I got into my first band at the age of 21. Yeah, so it kind of really stemmed from there, really.
Wow. So, how did it? So, you started off in your first band when you were 21. So, how did these bands that you've been in sort of all fall into place? Do you know what I mean? Because you was in Chameleon Vox, in Bush Art, you're now in YKO. Did they just sort of fall into place? Like, do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah, it's like I went through a phase of being in quite a lot of bands up to being in Bush Art, that was from sort of 1994, literally when Oasis came onto the scene and bands like that.
yeah,
But I did quite a lot of bands before that, about 7 or 8 different bands where you kind of trying to get used to working with people,
yeah,
also working with the right people, working in the right rehearsal studio, and then kind of things, and then just sort of obviously trying to perfect getting better at being a musician. So yeah, up to that point, I was in quite a lot of bands actually, and so
was
which yeah, it wasn't a bad thing really because you're working with all different people. You're working in all different rehearsal studios, and also I was doing recording then, so you're getting a bit of sort of knowledge about how to work in a studio and stuff like that, and certain techniques that you pick up, so that kind of thing. And then yeah, and it just sort of went on from there. It did build slowly but surely,
yeah,
and it was a great experience, fantastic really. I recommend any young lad or
yeah,
girl,
yeah,
early teens or late teens, if you want to play in a band, go for it if they're allowed to as such. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's mad because when you think, mate, like obviously going further back when obviously you started off like you're into all your punk music, weren't you?
Yeah, very much so.
And then sort of as it evolved, like you've sort of got like in Manchester and the Haçienda, obviously like Joy Division came about, which were a different
Yeah.
style of band, but they were so influential.
Oh
Even
yeah.
like not just in Manchester, like even today, there's so many American people that absolutely love like Ian Curtis and Joy Division, and obviously like people go to the graveside today, have the pictures taken there, but it's mad how over the years Manchester music sort of transcended with the times, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah, it's. I mean, I was fortunate enough to see Joy Division only on one occasion.
Wow.
That was in February 1980. They played at a venue called the New Osborne in Miles Platin.
Right.
Uh, it was called the Osborne before that, but it was a nightclub, and then it closed down and it reopened as a music venue. I went to see a few bands there, but I went to see Joy Division, supported by Section 25 and a certain ratio for £1.25.
Wow.
But at the time, man, when I went to the gig, obviously I was a Joy Division fan, but I didn't really sense the significance of it until,
Yeah.
unfortunately, after Ian Curtis passed away.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people a little bit older than me that's seen him on several occasions which is absolutely superb. So I've been fortunate in that. But happy days.
Yeah, mate. I bet my mate Ben will probably jump in on the chat. He went to see him. I think it was the Mayflower Club.
Mayflower, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few punk bands there from back in the day.
He said that I always remember what he said to me. He said the crowd weren't like jumping about dancing. He said they were more like in awe of it, like Ian Curtis and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like they were just looking at him, and he had this. Like obviously, I never got to see them well before my time, but it was only as I got older I started to get into Joy Division, and then you start listening to the records and the bass lines on the tracks and the riffs and everything, and you just think, wow, what a band! Because they didn't. To me, they didn't. I mean, you might know a bit more, but at the time, they just had this new sound, didn't they? You know, coming out of Manchester, and they just sort of like had their own style. They didn't really follow anything. You could tell they were influenced in ways by other bands, but with Ian Curtis, he was just this sort of. I think if he would have lived, you know, like he'd still be around today, he'd have been an absolute icon.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
I totally agree. I mean, of course, that was 1979 when Unknown Pleasures came out, and then, but before that, obviously, there was the punk thing, and obviously, people remember that Joy Division originally were a punk band, but then they morphed into this sort of post-punk band with a sort of a little bit of sort of dark goth influence, but then of course Martin Hannett got involved and created their sound, which made it quite dark. And of course Peter up bass lines. I mean, I could rattle off 20 favourite bass players of all time, but Ucky's up there in the top 5. And when I went to see him, at the Osborne, I was transfixed by Ian, but I was also transfixed by watching Ucky. As I do when I go and see any band, I always look at the bass player, and then check out the others a little bit later. It's just.
I mean, Ucky had his own style as well, didn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Very much,
the way he held the bass, like really low down, and you know, and his attitude as well. Because like out of the band, I was reading stuff and I've watched like the film and everything. He was a bit of a. He weren't scared to get stuck in from time to time, was he? You know, if it kicked off.
Oh no, he was partial to jumping down and throwing a few. I mean, John Joppinell was very similar.
Right.
Early Stranglers gigs, he always liked the community of being in amongst a bunch of lads. So of course, when it ever kicked off, or someone threw beer at him or giving grief, he just jumped in and the fists would go. He didn't bother. Did
they develop a thingy at first? Were they called Warsaw? Or something.
They were originally called Stiff Kittens, and then they called themselves after the Dave Bowie track Warsaw. And then he wasn't doing anything, and then of course they come up with Joy Division, which at the time in the late 70s was a real, is quite risky because of where the name come from. And then of course for decades they got labelled as being sort of Nazi influenced and things like that. And it. The little drummer boy on the sleeve of the first single, it was just, they didn't do it purposely, they just did it and it kind of went with them. And then, of course, when Ian Curtis passed away, with greatly sadly missed genius, and then when they formed New Order, they got for it again because of the name New Order. So it kind of like, it's worked for them, but it's also been a talking point regarding,
Because I remember watching an interview with Bernie Sumner, and he said that because obviously when they formed New Order, when New Order came about after obviously Ian Curtis passed away, he was saying that the style was changing because they went to a bit of a different, like Blue Monday, didn't they? The style of song just totally changed. And it became more like, it's a great track, it really is. But I often wonder, like, would it have stayed the same? Would they still sounded like Joy Division, or do you reckon that sort of when they changed bands and obviously evolved again? I just don't think they would have gone that route, really. Do you know what I mean? Because it went very. I think he went to America, didn't he? And he was listening to sort of what was going on in America with. It was more of an upbeat sound. And Joy Division was always sort of known, like you say, there was like early goth in a way. You know, like parts of him was
Yeah.
quite dark and deep music. And I just think that the music would have stayed that way. But he's convinced that there was going to start to change the style of Joy Division. Do you know what I mean? But I often always thought I couldn't have seen him doing stuff like that. I don't know if you agree with me or not. You
No,
know,
I totally agree, because I was only talking about that, about what Ian would have been doing today if he was still alive.
yeah,
Probably might have gone into being an author, or maybe poetry, or even music. But when Movement came out, which was the first New Order album, that to me is the transition from Joy Division before they made Power, Corruption and Lies. But with Movement, I found it was basically a third Joy Division album, but without
yeah,
Ian,
yeah,
because it's like the mixture of Closer and Unknown Pleasures.
yeah,
But obviously with Bernard and Lucky doing vocals.
yeah,
And then, like you said, Anne, they went to America, they went to these different clubs and started listening to dance music. And then they came back with Power, Corruption and Lies. They recorded Blue Monday, which didn't come out on the album. They left that separate. And as you know, that was a massive single, to say
yeah.
the least.
I mean, it's
So,
a brilliant track as well. I will admit, it's absolutely brilliant that, and it sort of it's like with the Hacienda and everything like that. Things started evolving at that time, didn't it? With the Hacienda, with Tony
yeah,
Wilson getting involved, and obviously they were always playing there with other bands, but you could sort of hear that Hacienda music coming into sort of they was creating the sound in a way, and you had like the Happy Mondays. They were always on at the Hacienda, weren't they? And it
oh,
just
yeah, yeah,
Manchester music at that time was just flourishing, and the Hacienda was like the heartbeat and the focal point. Everyone from all over the country, even around Europe, came to the Hacienda.
yeah,
Even if there
100%.
was, it was just for the experience of being there. But yeah, I think I'd love to have seen what Ian Curtis would have done. In his
Yeah,
life,
me
like you
too.
say, he would have definitely have done He was a massive poetry fan, weren't he?
Yeah,
He would
yeah,
have done poetry. He would have probably have done some solo stuff as well, but he would have been an absolute icon. And
yeah. I don't
he
think.
is.
Sorry, Anne, I don't think he. This is. I mean, this is like it's all hypotheticals, because obviously he's not with us anymore. But yeah, I think also I don't think. My personal opinion is just my personal opinion. If Ian had not done, or what happened to Ian had happened, and they'd gone on to make more albums, I don't think they would have gone dance wise. I
No,
personally think,
I
because
don't.
I think when Rob Gretton became manager of Joy Division, and then obviously then he continued managing New Order, he was there with like Tony Wilson saying, "Look, you're gonna after Movement, you're gonna have to change direction,
Mm, yeah.
because it's not going to have any longevity at all. It's not going
Mm,
to." So that's why they went from that to basically a dance band, and
yeah.
the rest is history, innit? I
Yeah, it
mean,
is. What's it
that's,
called as well? Like I think, like you say, Martin Hannett. I think was influential in the sound, weren't he, and everything
yeah.
for Joy. He made the sound what it were, and he in his own right was a genius. For
Oh,
what he did,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, magical. Because I mean, if you listen to the production on Unknown Pleasures, and obviously Bummed by Happy Mondays, Section 25 albums, Crispy Ambulance, all these Manchester bands, I can name loads more, but it certainly had a stamp on it as a producer.
yeah, 100%, yeah.
Like if are you familiar with Martin Russian, and
No,
he produced Dare by the Human League,
right, okay,
but he also produced earlier albums by the Stranglers, by 999, Generation X, Dr. Feelgood, them kind of bands.
right,
And he went on to produce. He sadly passed away about 7 years ago, but he was another one of them producers like John Leckie. John
yeah,
Leckie produced the Stone Roses by the Stone Roses, produced a lot of Fall albums. So these producers all having their own stamp on the albums that came out. So the producers were equally as important as the musicians.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
So, have you got any memories of the Hacienda? Did you go to the Hacienda? Was it
I did.
I can
Yeah, went
imagine it
quite.
was a place you went quite a bit.
Yeah, went quite a lot. So it was in equal measures going, raving as such or whatever, but also watching bands as well, because I've seen New Order there a couple of times. And with New Order, they're one of them bands, not so much now, but back then they were either superb or they were all over the place.
Right. Okay.
And I suppose sometimes there's different reasons for that, but we won't go into, if you know what I mean, more chemical reasons. But no, yeah, but the Haçienda was, I've been in there when it's been quite dead. And then obviously whenever Manchester took off, it was rammed, and there was never any troubles. And part reason for that is because there were a lot of the people taking ease.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's why. I mean, even the United and City fans at derbies are all looking at each other. You know, it was mad. So it was a good thing all round for that. But of course, you know, without coining the obvious adage, all good things come to an end, because you seen what happened in 1997 when all the guns got in, and that was it really. But when you think in 1982 it opened, and it was open 7 nights a week. It wasn't making any money at all. And then suddenly they just started putting bands on. And then they started having these, there was like Flesh for gay and lesbian nights. There was disco nights, there was funk nights. And it started slowly but surely to get better and better. And then of course more people come in. And like you said, Anne, word gets round. They come from Liverpool, they come from Newcastle, London. Then, of course, they come from Europe, and then, of course, they come from America. So, and it just got massive. It's a brilliant club. It was super.
I would have loved, mate. Honestly, I went past it a few months ago, and I was going to do a bit of a video on it. I'll probably get round to doing it one day. But you can still see, you know, you can see where the sort of dance floor would have been now when you look through the vents. You can see it's still all got like factory stuff on it, you know, like there's still like stuff there in the car park. But I would have just loved to. I could just in my mind's eye see people queuing for miles. Do you know what I mean? Because it sort of snakes around the corner, and I would have loved to have just gone in and experienced, you know, the atmosphere in there when a top band was on, or even Madonna performed there.
She did, 1984. Yeah, 1984. Yeah, I mean, I saw Stone Roses there in 1989, and again, it's like you knew there were going to be something, but you wasn't quite sure what. You know, with Ian Brown's stage presence and John Squire's guitar playing, and of course the rhythm section of Manny and Renner, superb. And of course, literally 7 months later, when the album came out, bang!
Yeah, it blew.
Yeah, totally. But then equally again, when the Mondays did Pills, Thrills and Bellyaches, you know, it catapulted them as well. And inspired us and Charlatans, Northside. The list is endless, really. But yeah, it's a quality place. It was, and I mean, you know, you never think of a place like that shutting down, but you know yourself, with the way time goes and developments and buildings and stuff like that. Some clubs, you know, they can be there for years and then suddenly they're gone.
Yeah, everything comes to an end, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Superb.
You're on about like obviously bands being influential and the producers being equally as talented and influential in their own way, but to put a venue like that on and to sort of be a visionary like Tony Wilson, he sort of catapulted Manchester music to the forefront, didn't he? And you know, he had his TV show where he put people on, Joy Division being one of them. And what he did, he was sort of a bit of a pioneer, I think. He was ahead of his time. I think he was personally ahead of his time because he could see that these talented bands in Manchester just needed that push and they needed to be exposed. And Tony Wilson, for what he did to bring like the sort of the Haçienda and have his shows and interview people, and he was he was ahead of his time, but he's equally as influential, you know, and it is, you know, for what he's done. He's another guy.
I mean, his show, so it goes. I mean, they highlight is like say Joy Division, The Fall, Buzzcocks, you know, and all that, and all them kind of bands. And they did a lot of filming at the Electric Circus, which is in Colliers. And a few years later, he had another music show called OSM, Other Side of Midnight. I don't even remember that, Anne, where he showcased bands like Yargo, who were from Moss Side, the Mock Turtles from Middleton, Newcastle Automatic Daffodils, the Mondays were on there, Dub Sex, they were from Newham. So that was like a second generation of bands that come through in the late 90s and early mid 90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
And he gave them exposure, but of course, he's under a producer himself,
Yeah.
and with So It Goes, and also The Other Side of Midnight, they only really got a couple of runs at shows, series to do, and then that was it. You know, he went back to presenting, but he was equally as a force. With the music, getting it out there. Absolutely brilliant.
He was another one that was taken too soon as well. He was only young, really, when he sort of passed away. He weren't old, and he's one person that I would have loved to have watched more interviews on and even met him. You know, I would love to have met him, just picked his brains for a bit, because some of the stories he must have had. Sorry, he must. You know what I mean? And some of the stuff he's seen and the bands that he sort of brought through and the stories of all them bands. I'd have loved to have read a book, you know, his autobiography or something. I bet he had so many stories. And he actually he didn't live too far from me up here.
All right.
He lived in, I think it was in Marple, in Strines, like that way. But he used to obviously travel into Manchester. But yeah, Tony Wilson, I like everything that he's done. I like, and I just agree. I think he was a visionary. You know what I mean? He was a proper visionary. So, Ray, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in the chat, because there's loads of people messaging here.
All right, mate, no worries.
And if you see any that you want to answer, because there's loads of questions and that, just jump in, mate, and we'll have a little. I'll try and catch up to where I'm at. So, Sharon says, "Hiya, Ray. Have you heard of the Bob Marley joke?"
The Bob Marley joke. No, the thing is, I'm not familiar with that joke, people have been singing me about that. When I did my show the other day, I was like, well, actually, I tell a lie, because I was actually forced to tell the joke right at the end of the show, which was much liked by your dad. I know Shannon loves that Bob Marley joke. She absolutely loves it. Well, maybe not.
Phil Miller says, he said he's got to leave now to watch Level 42 at the Lowry. He said something before that he had what was it up here?
Another great bass player, Mark King. Yeah.
He said something about him owning an original Warsaw copy of on vinyl or something.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, that'd be worth a few, Bob.
My dad says, Ray, do you think you'd be able to play it one day? Ray was a backing singer for the Nolans.
Yeah, I still got my dresses in the wardrobe in
here. She says he's going to kill me. Paul, a good friend of mine, Paul, he says, did you see the Ian Curtis film?
Yes.
It was a good film, wasn't it?
Brilliant film, yeah. To your friend there, did he go and see the play New Dawn Fades, or which you went to last night? Me and Jill, it was brilliant.
Was it good, mate? Yeah.
Fantastic, mate. Yeah, very funny. Yeah. Very funny, quite moving and emotional. Yeah. But the acting and the characters was brilliant. Yeah, it's great.
Where was that, mate? Sorry.
That was at the Royal Northern College of Music. That was the second and final night last night. Wow. But I was talking to Tony Davidson, who was part of in getting the play up and running.
Right.
He owned the building on Peter Street, which is his flats now, but that it was originally next to what is now the boardwalk. Even though that got a plaque there. It was a rehearsal studio called TJ Davidson, where Joy Division rehearsed, and where the video for Love Will Tear Us Apart was filmed. Now, he was saying, what you're up to next year. So I said, we're going to me and Jill are going to this Scarborough Punk Festival in April, and we've got Rebellion in Blackpool in August. And I was telling him a few bands that are playing, and he says they're hoping to get the play put on at Rebellion.
Wow.
And the Rebellion Festival is the 1st, the 2nd, and the 4th of August. And I think that would be absolutely brilliant if they did that, because not only on the last few times that the play has been done, that's been done purely for mainly Manchester people that have seen it. If you go to Blackpool, you get people from Japan, America, Europe going to that festival because it's a 4-day festival. So it'll get out there.
Unbelievable.
And it will resonate with a lot of people because it's such a brilliant play, and the people that the cast was amazing.
How long was it on for?
It was on for an hour and a half, but it had a 15-minute break.
Right.
So it was 45 minutes, 15 minutes, and then 45.
Right.
And it went like that, but it was they got everything right. Because I know my stuff because I've read a lot, but they got everything right about the person who played Peter Hook, the lad who played Ian Curtis. Oh, unbelievable! And they did 2 songs. They did Transmission and Shadow Play, which were backing tracks, but he did a live vocal, this lad, and he did Ian's dance. It eerily sounded like Ian, and the place was everyone stood up and was clapping at the end. It was amazing.
Wow, sounds amazing, mate.
Yeah.
So my dad said he nearly saw Joy Division. Obviously he didn't. Slurpy's here, hi mate. Hope you're well, mate. Back again, my telly went pear-shaped. So he says we've got a few more evening and listening. Factory covered. Did Ray ever go in the studio with Martin Hannett? Says my dad.
No, I'd love to have done for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I got into music and I got to follow bands, and then I got to learn about what Martin was doing with his stamp on the records, what he made, and the influence. Yeah, I'd give me right arm to be in the studio with him, but it unfortunately never happened.
Never. Slurpy, my mate, says, does Ray remember the Electric Circus? Great old band venue, he said.
Yeah, I was a little bit too young to go there, but I knew people who were 15 and 16 who went there, who seen Buzzcocks and Penetration and Sex Pistols and stuff like that. So they're in their mid-60s now, and they said it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But again, also as well, even though you wasn't quite sure where these bands were going, you knew they had something. And it was only 2 years later that they looked back and thought, I was there when the Sex Pistols gig at the Free Trade Hall where everyone claims they were there.
Yeah.
Well, these lads who I knew, seen early performances by Buzzcocks and the Drums and John Cooper Clarke. I mean, even AC/DC played there, Talking Heads, Ramones, the list is endless. And these lads seen those bands really when they was sort of like just cutting the teeth with the live circuit. And of course, a lot of them bands went absolutely massive. So I was just a little bit too young for it. Sometimes you wish you was older when you're younger, and then when you get older, you wish you was younger. But for that reason only, to answer you, mate, I wish it was about 18 or 19 and saw those bands before they got bigger.
Yeah, 100%.
But fortunately enough, I got to see them when they got a bit bigger, so it was all right.
So just remind me, mate, the Lesser Free Trade Hall gig that was like an iconic gig. There's so many bands there. Can you name them? Do you know who was there?
Yeah, there was Slaughtering the Dogs. They were with your sort of glam punk band. There was Buzzcocks and of course Sex Pistols because they did like 2 gigs.
Yeah.
No, the Drones, who were quite a hard-working punk band, did a lot of supporting as well. But as far as I'm aware, they didn't play. It was just them 3 bands for them 2 gigs.
But there was a lot in the audience, weren't there, that went on to do big things? Because I think once Simply Red's supposed to be there, Mick Hucknall and that.
Yeah, Mick Hucknall was there, and of course Ucky and Bernard.
Yeah.
And a few others, and they literally went out a couple of days later and bought guitars and drums and basses and set up their own bands, and then started to
off the back of that gig.
Off the back of that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's like when I first started playing bass when I was 13. When I first heard that intro, like I said earlier, for Peaches, I originally wanted to be a drummer, and before my mum passed away, I said, "Mum, can I have a drum kit?" And she says, no, you can't. He said, because A, I can't afford one, and B, they're too noisy. So have a think about something else. So I went with the bass, and it just sort of went from there, really. You know, yeah.
Never look back, eh?
Never look back, mate. Yeah.
My local music shop. Oh, we've got a joke here. It says my local music shop got robbed the other day. A thief ran away with the loot. My dad says
your dad's partial to some absolute iconic jokes, Sam. Has he told you the Liam Gallagher joke?
No, which was that?
Oh, you have to get him to teach you to what it is. You know, like in the Paradox Club, it's the Liam Gallagher joke is of legend. It's of legend. It's even got to the point where people are actually saying in the group, "No, not the Liam Gallagher joke."
Slurpy says, I remember watching Buzzcocks early on. Howard Devoto, lead singer.
Yeah. I mean, Howard Devoto was on the he was on the Spiral Scratch EP.
Yeah.
And then he left Buzzcocks then he formed Magazine. And they made like 6 albums over the years.
Yeah.
And then of course Pete Shelley was the bass player, and then he went on to rhythm guitar and became, the voice of Buzzcocks.
Yeah.
From late 77.
I remember my mate Ben, he's seen the Buzzcocks, and he says that they're his favourite band ever, the Buzzcocks. Like, massively into, he loves all genres of music, but he just says the Buzzcocks was like number one. Do you know what I mean? They're a great band.
Well, Pete Shelley had this knack of writing, even though they were a punk band, a melodic punk band at that, he had this superb knack of writing absolute brilliant love songs. You listen to a lot of songs from the first 3 Buzzcocks albums. The majority of them are love songs.
Yeah.
And you can't grumble a love song, but you've got to do it right. And he had his own way of doing it, and he's left that legacy of all those wonderful songs like "Ever Falling in Love," and go on and on and on. And he had a very distinctive vocal. Not the greatest voice, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that he was very distinctive, and because his lyrics were really strong, and obviously he had a top band with him. It was a powerhouse, the 4 of them.
Yeah, definitely. So Nick says my copy of Blue Monday has the centre label in reverse.
I reckon that's worth £2.
Yeah, it will be. That's it. Sorry, Phil Miller says I own the first single by Warsaw, "Ideal for Living" on my 12-inch vinyl.
Yeah, "Ideal for Living" EP. Yeah.
Slurpy says, remember going to a punk night at the Haçienda midweek? Absolutely jam-packed, he said. Joe says, oh, she's chatting to my dad. There's so many little jokes going on here. I can't keep up with them all, honestly. They're all bad jokes, you know what I mean? You can tell me dad's
well, the thing is that someone said to me, if you actually told a decent joke, no one would laugh. So that's why I just go down the shite joke route.
Yeah. We've got, so Ray had free radio. Oh, so Sharon's just saying Ray has free radio shows on North Manchester 106.6, Tuesday 5 till 7 alternative music, Wednesday 5 till 7 punk show, and Friday 4 till 7 M40 Mank music. So
that's good, mate. Yeah.
What I'll do on the end of this, mate, I'll put a link to all, your page and everything, so people can find you. And they can tune in. No problem, mate. Not at all. So someone's I just missed one here actually. Got Mohammed on. Says hi Ray, everyone in the chat watching from Sheffield. Chris says evening lads. So he's got a question for both of us. I'll let you answer it first. He says Stone Roses or Oasis.
Whoa. If you're talking for immediate impact and what it can give you when you go and see a band and it blows you away, Oasis. The only difference is between them two, and I'm not insulting anybody's intelligence, of course, Oasis had more more output material-wise because they stayed together longer.
Yeah.
But them two Stone Roses albums are absolute quality.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd just say Stone Roses.
Yeah, Stone Roses. See, I'd probably go with. I love the Stone Roses because I was obviously brought up with my dad playing it on cassette and everything, like in the car
Yeah.
and stuff, as a kid.
Yeah.
But I remember fondly Oasis sort of bursting on the scene. So it holds more sentimental value to me, Oasis. And some of the songs remind me of being a kid. And whereas Stone Roses did in a way, but it wasn't until I got to say 12, 13, 14 when I started to listen properly to them and really enjoyed them. And I think equally as good as each other. But for me, I'd probably say Oasis. Like you say, they were around longer as well. They were together longer, and they had like massive hits. But I mean, an album that doesn't really get much recognition, and it sort of slips under the radar. But I think Master Plan was an amazing album.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Some of them songs there, the acoustics and stuff, and just little songs like Rocking Chair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Head Shrinker. Head Shrinker's got a real old punk beat to it. It's great.
It's probably their fastest song.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the Haçienda then, I mean, I saw Oasis what they called at the Haçienda in '94 for the Definitely Maybe party, they called it.
Yeah.
Which was the release for the debut album. And they came on and just went through this set and they just blew the roof off completely. Yeah. And then I thought, well, that was a gig to never forget. And what happened was about 6 months later, they decided to do another gig, but they did it at the Academy One. Right. By this time, they were getting bigger and bigger. So I went to that. And of course, the volume of people in the Haçienda compared to the 1,000 in the Academy One, which it holds, they just went up another level.
Yeah.
And then after that, the next one was Milton Keynes, where they played in front of 250,000. So they just went from small venue to massive.
Massive, yeah.
When Stone Roses, it was built. See, some people might feel, unless you know your Manchester music, they were around in 1985, Stone Roses, and they're originally a mod band, and they sort of built and built and built. Different lineup changes. Then they knocked out the debut album, and then they thought, right, that's it. And they were expecting to go the same way as Oasis, but of course, things started to implode.
Yeah.
And then they got into this tangle with the record label, and then they couldn't record anything for 5 years. And then Second Coming came out. But by that time, the influence of that album, which is not a bad influence, but John Squire was getting very much into a Led Zepp kind of mode, which is highly influenced on that second album. And I thought, where's this going to go next? Because they've gone from having this 60s influence on the debut album to having more of a rocky influence on the Second Coming. Are they going to change direction again? And they never did because they split up.
Yeah,
which is a shame, really. But there was a lot of things going on.
Yeah, they like you say, they got screwed over with the record label, didn't they?
Very much so, yeah.
Which sort of hindered him, and I think with the style changes, it's probably down to not recording a track for so long, and then all of a sudden the music sort of changed, and maybe I don't know, he was looking for something different. But two brilliant albums in their own right, but two total different albums, weren't they?
Yeah. I mean, if you listen to the first album by Oasis, Definitely Maybe, and you listen to Morning Glory, which equally is a brilliant album.
Yeah.
And then you got The Year Now, where the three albums are very similar, but the third album, they started to expand. They started to do a lot of long songs on that album.
Yeah.
Whereas on the first two albums, they were kind of like 3 or 4 minutes, apart from like Slide Away or songs like that.
Yeah.
But both them albums are very similar. You still got the power, whereas Stone Roses and Second Coming, they still got the power, but it's the same band. You just said it, but it's totally two different albums. And of course, even the vocals by Ian Brown was slightly different.
Yeah, it's like the first. The first two Oasis albums, like he reckons that he wrote them, didn't he, when he was like in that bedsit on in Manchester. So he was writing at the time there as a kid, as a guy on the dole, and all he lived for was music. And I think these bands, they change the sound and the styles because obviously they reach superstardom, and then they're not writing for they were writing to get out of Manchester and to escape and to blow up and be worldwide superstars. And then when they hit that, they can't really go back to writing them songs because their lives have changed, haven't they? Do you know what I mean?
Very much so, very much. I've just seen something there from your dad, and he says, did I know that Stone Roses were originally called the Patrol? I do, Mully, I do, yeah. I do remember that. I forgot about it until you just mentioned it, but yeah, the Patrol.
Slurpy says here, I'm sorry if I'm missing any comments, and I don't, I'm really, the chat's going really quick. But Slurpy says, I actually played a friendly cricket match against Granada TV and Tony Wilson was playing.
Wow. Yeah, brilliant.
So Sharon says, the music's great, you've just got to put up with the bad jokes.
Actually, referring to my show again, I do drop in one or two howlers, and to say the least. What it is, I get information from a reliable source, and every Friday now that when I'm doing my show, Sharon's hitting the gin.
Yeah.
During the show, you know what I mean? And by the end of the show, she's probably into a second bottle.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've witnessed it myself.
Oh, there you go then.
I've witnessed it myself, mate.
Yeah. I'm not going to say who's giving me the information. Like that, I can't do that.
My dad says Stone Roses. He said without them, Oasis wouldn't have formed.
Yeah, he's correct there.
Yeah.
Because I read an interview with Liam Gallagher many years ago, and he said he went to see Stone Roses well before Oasis formed, and he said, "I just watched Ian Brown and I thought I want to be the same as him."
Yeah, he did.
So that was it. Yeah.
Where are we here? So, God, we've got the jokes. It must be you, Ray. We must be trying to give you some ammo for the jokes. How do you make a band? How do you make a bandstand take their chairs away? So these, you know. So Slurpy says I saw Elvis Costello at the Electric Circus Ray Ace gig.
All right, Elvis Costello, yeah. I saw him many years ago. Obviously, a lot after the Electric Circus, and he was quality. But I can imagine seeing him. Only imagine seeing him at that time. It would have been brilliant to see bands like that.
I was recently watching a interview with what's he called? Lead singer of Reverend Makers.
All right.
I can't believe I forgot his name. John McClure.
Right.
I was watching an interview with him, and he says that, like, you know, he's trying to fight for these sort of spit and sawdust places to stay open in Sheffield because that had a good music scene as well, didn't it?
Oh, Sheffield.
Yeah, massive. And he was saying that they have this. You can always tell, like a Sheffield band like the Arctic Monkeys, Pulp and stuff. He said, and Reverend Makers. He says they all have this big bass line in all the tracks. And he says, well, obviously in the first couple of albums when they're starting out, and he reckons it's because they're in mill, you know, where they record a lot of the stuff. He says they're in mills, old mills, and he says that you have to, like, you know, turn the bass up so you can hear it and everything. But he says we all share this like common thing in our tracks that the bass is always really prominent on the tracks, and he's convinced it's because they're all produced and recorded in mills. But
that Champion of the World, I think it's called. What was it? They made a lot of really good tunes, but that one really stands out. If you listen to the bass on that, it's very prominent.
Yeah, a lot of their early stuff is the start of the tracks start off with the bass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love them Revenant Makers. I like him. He's quite a political person, but he does speak a lot of sense when it comes to music and culture, you know. And like I say, Sheffield have had some massive bands, haven't they?
Oh, Sheffield, I mean, you know, you got Pulp, Human League.
The Arctic Monkeys are another one.
Arctic Monkeys, yeah. There's Clock DVA. There's absolutely loads. But Liverpool, Newcastle, Birmingham, of course, London, and up in Scotland, and in Ireland, and Belfast, and they all had their fair share of cracking bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of great has come from the UK, especially.
My dad's just asked a question, mate. He just says, "Was it nervous auditioning for the Chameleons?"
Yeah, it was.
Was
yeah,
it?
because when I went to the rehearsal, I'm being asked to rehearse in front of the guy who wrote the bass lines.
Right.
Because Mark Burgess came off the bass
Yeah.
and wanted us to be a front man.
Right. Okay.
So I had to learn his bass lines, but not only did I have to learn his bass lines, I had to do. They had to be note perfect, because when you're going out playing in front of Chameleons fans, like I'm a Stranglers fan, if they got a new bass player, I'll be watching him like a hawk.
Yeah.
Because I'm a fan and I know their bass line. So I had to get them right. And there was times when I was sort of working my way through them where I was making silly mistakes, and I thought, I've got to get my head down here and do this, because there was tours lined up. Unfortunately, I forgot my head down, and he eventually he sort of coached me into saying that goes there and that goes there and do this and do that. And then eventually he just left me to it, and I settled, and I just opened up and really enjoyed it.
So did he sort of, was he sort of influential in like building your confidence up as well and stuff,
Well, yeah. Well, what happened was, the reason why Matt Burgess got involved is because when I was in Bushart, we didn't have a drummer after we recorded our debut album, and Steve Foxcroft, the guitarist, got in. I don't really know how he did it, but he got in contact with John Lever, who was the original drummer of Chameleons, and John said, "Yeah, I'll come and rehearse and do some tunes for you." And of course, it just went that quick that we ended up doing an album with him. And then while we was doing that, and during rehearsals, we started. John said, "Why don't we do a couple of Chameleon songs and you singing, Foxer, just to put in the set, in the Bushart set?" So we started doing that. And of course, the Chameleons manager got wind of it. He came to rehearsals, saw that we was doing a really good job, and then he got in contact with Mark, who at the time was in America, and got him to come over. And we did a gig at the Roadhouse with Mark on vocals. But it was under the Bushart banner, and then it changed to. We did a couple under the name of John Lever's Second Skin, and then they decided to change the name to Chameleons Vox, and it just went from like that, and it just went like that.
Wow. Where did you tour then, Ray? Whereabouts was you touring?
Did like about 5 or 6 tours of Germany, also Spain, Italy, Belgium, Holland, and then I did a month's tour in America, doing the East and West Coast.
Wow, but that was an experience, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was in 2011, sort of October to sort of mid-November in 2011, yeah. Wow. Sort of like 24 gigs. We started off in Texas and worked our way up through sort of LA, San Francisco, and over to the East Coast and back down to New York, all that kind of thing. And then literally, come off that. And then about 10 days later, I went back to Germany to do another tour for a full week. It was bad, but it was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're in a band for, isn't it? You want to do all that. That's like winning the Champions League, really, going on tour and going to all them places. Yeah. And where is any place that sort of stands out where you thought, wow, we really smashed it there?
The main one that really stood out for me, it was actually, there's a festival in Barcelona called Primavera. It's on every year, and
I've heard of that, mate. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, well, we played that, and we were on the same bill as The Cure. And what happened was there was about 6,000 people there, and the bloke stage manager says, "You're on in 10 minutes. Everyone's set to go," and he says, "Yeah," and he says, "Just to let you know, the gig's being filmed."
Wow.
So I basically shat bricks, to coin the phrase. And I thought, oh my God. And it was like 7 o'clock in the evening. It was boiling. And me, stupidly, I wore a black shirt and black jeans and I just went out there and I saw this camp flying round, and I thought, right, I just got my head down and just went for it, and just tried to ignore it.
Yeah.
And it was, I've been in crowds like that watching bands, and I was on the other side. It was just like I was completely pinching myself. It was unreal.
Because
Great experience.
you've sat there and watched people on stage perform, and then the roles have reversed. People are watching you. Do you know what I mean? And they've paid to
Yeah,
see and everything. So you've like nailed it there. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the ultimate thing. Like I said, that's what you're getting a band for. And to go on tour is just like, especially like America and Germany and stuff like that. I mean, they're just massive experiences on their own, aren't they?
Well, they are, and I mean, and a lot, obviously, with them both being massive countries as well, and met a lot of friends. Still got a lot of friends from Germany, lovely people, and the places that we played was, some of the venues that we was playing in Germany were like 500 and 600 capacity,
Right.
and it's like anything else. If you fall off a bike, you get back on it, and then you get used to it again.
Yeah.
When I was doing these tours in local bands, the gigs in local bands, you have your friends there and stuff like that. But when you're in a band that's sort of well known, you're playing amongst a hell of a lot of people. And I only used to get slight jitters, which I think is a good thing. I was never shaking like a leaf, apart from the Spanish gigs.
Yeah.
But I used to have that little sort of flutter in my stomach, and I knew if I had that, I was going to play well.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I totally get that. He says, doesn't he? I think he said there's quite a famous quote, David Bowie. He said that you should always come out your comfort zone. He said, and when your feet can't touch the floor and you feel scared, he said, then you know you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's true that.
Yeah. Well, going back to what you said there about David Bowie, I mean, he's no longer with us, of course, but he went through all that, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%.
And he had the balls to break up Ziggy Stardust and go on to other projects, and then reinvent himself and redo it again and get to that point on 5 or 6 occasions over his career. That takes some doing that. For the major artists, because you can have your comfort zone, can't you, and stay safe.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah.
He never did that.
So Slurpee says Ray used to climb a ladder when he sang so he could reach the high notes.
Well, the thing is, you see, I always knew I was going up in the world, and you know what I mean.
What have we got? Where are we? I tell you what, it's just full of jokes. This. I don't know what's going on tonight. So Slurpee here again. He says a van carrying 1970s session musicians crashed on the motorway. Police said they are expecting lengthy jams.
Yeah, brilliant.
Where are we? Yeah, read that about my dad. So Manda, she's in South Africa, and she said, I had no idea 10cc originated in Manchester and the Hollies. She said, impressive.
Yeah, 10cc. Yeah, they recorded all their albums at Strawberry Studios, and I played a track for Paul Fish, who's in the Paradox Club, a track called Good Morning Judge by 10cc on my show on Friday. And what I was about to do was let people know where 10cc got the name from. But I couldn't do it because it's a bit naughty.
Right, okay.
So I don't know if Mandy's aware of where they got the name from. But yeah, they did all their albums at Strawberry Studios, and they also owned it as well. They owned the studio. Yeah. They started off in 1972.
Yeah.
They were called Hot Legs.
Right.
And then they changed the name to 10cc. What I'll do is, because I think I can, the reason why they were called 10cc is because they were going to call themselves 9cc, right? But the reason why I didn't do that is because allegedly 9cc is the speed of what a man ejaculates.
Really?
So they called themselves 10cc.
Ah, no way.
That's what I read.
Yeah, well, that'll be true, but I never knew that. Never knew that.
Yeah, that's what I'm not winding up. That's
what I read. You.
Yeah.
I believe you.
So that's why they couldn't call themselves 9cc, because people are going, oh, hang on a minute.
So just saying about you just mentioned Strawberry Studios there. That's like another iconic place, isn't it? Some of the bands that
Yeah.
have recorded there and everything. And what is it today? Is it still a studio, or is it? Because I went past it not long ago. I think it might be a
It's
solicitor's
still a
now, but I'm
studio,
not
but
sure.
it's not a working studio, and there's offices there. And right opposite, if you did you see what used to be, well, the building right opposite, which was kind of, it was a pub where all the bands used to go in when they used to record
Wow.
there.
Wow.
When Paul McCartney used to record at Strawberry Studios, he used to go in there for a pint. Obviously, New Order, the Mondays, House Martins recorded there. All these bands that recorded there all went in that pub for a pint.
Yeah.
I think it's called the Wellington Arms, or it was. The building's
Yeah.
still there, but it's all boarded up. But no, it's just it's not a working studio anymore, but it's still a studio as such.
Yeah.
But yeah. Going back to the 10cc thing, there was another thing what I found out. 'Cause I like all things like this. I was reading about them, and when they recorded "I'm Not in Love," the what got to number
Yeah.
one, the big hit, they layered all these vocals and made it like a big cacophony of sound. And what happened was they did the playback, and Eric Stewart said to the bass player, he said, "There's something missing from this song." And the song is 6 minutes long, by the way. And he said, "No, it's all right. Believe it. It'll be okay. We don't need to do any more with this song." Graham Gouldman, who was from Prestwich as well. And he said, "Hang on a minute." So he went out, and they had the little booth there where the receptionist worked. I think it was called Vera or something like that. Anyway, she knew the band because obviously they come past to go into the studio. And he said to her, he said, "Have you got a minute?" So she went, "Yeah, why?" She just come in the studio, put these headphones on. So she went, "Right." So she put the headphones on. And she says, "What do you want me to do?" And he gave her this piece of paper. And he says, "When I tell you, just say these words." And in the song where it says, "Boys, be nice and quiet, be nice and
Yeah.
quiet." Well, that's her.
No way.
And when they did that, they put a little bit of reverb on a vocal. And then they just said, "That's it. The song's done."
Still. Yeah. It just needed something.
Just a little something.
Yeah.
After all that layering of the vocals and the synthesizers, they just wanted just a little bit of minimal just to
Yeah.
finish it off.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that studio magic
Yeah.
you can't hear. And Martin
Madness.
Hampton's very good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like Ben's just said there. I think he said it was the Waterloo, the pub.
Sorry, the Waterloo.
The
Yeah, well
Waterloo.
done, Ben. Yeah,
But isn't
correct.
it a
Yeah,
shame that like sort of that place has so much history and there's so many bands been there, like global stars, and the pub, like you say, would have been going over there and having a few pints after they've recorded or whatever. Places like that are just boarded, and
yeah.
forgotten about, but they're part of the history of that area. It's crazy. It
Well, it is
saddens me. It
because
saddens me these pubs, mate, when they just board them up and because they're full of memories. Do you know what I mean?
they are, mate. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I know how you feel about that. I mean, I've seen your vlogs. When you've
Yeah,
been doing your Deaf Monkey vlogs and that, and you're even passionate about the fact that they're not there anymore because
yeah.
of what's inside them.
I hate
You're
it.
quite right. Man.
Yeah, I hate it, mate. I know, like I say, I know everything comes to an end, and I know that times change and places get regenerated and stuff. But I just think certain things you should be sort of looking after them rather than knocking them down, even if it's been put back into use and it's still something, rather than just flattening it. Because
Yeah,
there's so many memories for not just the people that would say perform there, but the locals of the area too. Do you know what I mean? It's just saddening, and the way it's going now, mate. The pubs are just dropping like flies. The working class
yeah,
pubs on the estates, they're just dropping. So
yeah. That's
Sharon's just said when and where is the next YKO gig?
We're gonna try and get something started before the end of the year, but looking more as well to sort of early next year.
Early next year.
We've got well probably before the end of this year, early next year as well, and then we've got a new album coming out, and we're in the process, nearly finishing at the moment, of restoring our rehearsal room into a recording studio, so we can record as we rehearse, kind of thing.
Right. Do
So
you
there's a lot going on.
do you have any input on the thingy side of it then, or do you sort of let the producers do it, or do you have a say in how the sound, like a certain sound might be on a track? Do you have any sort of input on that?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because it's like what I tend to do with when I've gone recording with YKO is I go in and say, for instance, we have a batch of songs. On one of on each song, I'll record. I'll do three takes. I'll do three bass lines
Yeah.
of the same bass line, and then I'll say to the producer, you know, I'll have that. I think that one's the best out of the three. But then can you put this bit of reverb on it, or a little bit of distortion, or a little bit of something, and give it a little bit more of an edge or whatever? And then he'll layer that onto the drums, and then the lads then will start having their input. And then what he'll do, then he'll get all that, and then he'll say, I think this should go there. I think that should go there. Try this, try that. So then he starts his producing. So everyone has.
Is that sort of something that you'd be interested in the future? Because obviously you've got all the experience, Ray, of all them the years that you've been in bands and you've toured everywhere and you know music inside out. Have you never thought about getting involved in producing like music?
I have on quite a few occasions, but it's just getting it up and running, because when I've had sort of slight lulls for different reasons, I've gone back to being in a band, and then of course I did my radio course and started doing my radio. So it takes up a lot of your time, you know, because
Yeah, I can imagine.
even though doing the shows on community radio, I don't get paid a penny, and that's not. I do it just purely for the love of getting music out there, and people saying, "Oh, I've not heard that song before. Oh, who's that?" And oh, wow, cheers for that, or whatever.
Yeah,
But doing 3 shows a week is brilliant, but it can take up a lot of your time,
I can
and also
imagine.
when you're rehearsing with the band and then recording and whatever, and then obviously I work full time, so it's kind of like just where can it fit in?
Yeah.
Someone said to me a few years ago, was saying to Jill, you should write a book, you Ray, on all the stuff that you've done. And I thought, wow, I'd love to do that, but where am I going to get the time to do it? If I had no band and no radio show, then I could possibly think about doing a book, or doing, like you're saying, doing producing and just going to small studios and pick up stuff like that. I'd like to think at some point I could go down that road when I can't pluck my strings anymore.
Yeah. Have you kept a like a collage over the years of all the places and gigs you've done, and have you got all the like memorabilia? Like you've kept the tickets from certain gigs and stuff.
Yeah, I'm a magpie, me. I've kept everything.
See, that'd be great in a book, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? You can show all that.
I've
And
got everything of when
like
we
you
used
say,
to when we
go
used
on,
to do
mate.
gigs
Sorry.
when we used to do gigs at wherever it was, the first thing I'd do before we set up the gear, where's the poster, and I'd go and nick it,
Yeah.
put it in my bass case, and that's another one. And then suddenly I'd have about, depending on how many gigs we played, if we did say 5 gigs in a week in Germany, I'd have 5 posters from different venues, and then the only downside to that is she'll give me a bollocking once, because, well, it was a nice bollocking, because when it comes to putting these posters in frames, she said, why have you folded them? Why don't you roll them up?
Oh
And I
yeah.
thought, you've got creases in it, it's like a window.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, fair comment.
Yeah.
So now I roll with it.
Yeah. Roll with it.
That's part of the Liam Gallagher joke as well, what Molly always says.
Oh god. Yeah, that'd be great though, mate. If you did come, I mean, it's not as hard as you think to actually get it up and running a book. I've looked into it myself,
Right.
and there's like a piece of software that basically it's through Amazon, I think, and you can start chipping away at it when you get a bit of free time and just keep chipping away at it. Don't cost anything, and then when it's released, they print it and everything for you, and then they'll take a cut of that, but they'll basically, the whole sort of software, everything's free. And then once it
Right.
starts to sell, that's when they take a cut, and then obviously you get a cut as well. So to get it
Yeah.
up and running wouldn't cost. It's just like you say, you're really busy at the minute, but it might be something that you do in the future, But I think that'd be great, mate. It'd be absolutely brilliant. Some of the stories you've got and some of the experiences you've had, I think it'd make an absolute brilliant book. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
a few people have said that, because I mean, I've got it all in there. All my memories are in there, but also I've got stuff that I've kept, but you don't always tell people stuff because unless they ask you about it. I'm not one of these people that says, "Oh, by the way, I was in this band and I was doing this and I was." I stay clear of that.
Yeah.
Like you've asked me, I'll open up.
Yeah.
And I'll open up to anyone who's interested, but I don't. I know people who have been in bands and they're like, "Oh, well, I've done this and I've done that," which is great, and fair play. But I tend to just sort of pull away from that unless you ask.
Yeah,
and then
totally get that, mate. I totally get
so
that.
maybe I can really open up in a book at some point when I'm basically not as busy as I am at the moment. Or I've been for quite some time, But are you in the process of doing a book, Anne?
No, I thought about writing. The thing is with me, Ray, I'm not educated to any high level. The editing that I do is only what I've picked up myself. I've never, been to a university doing anything. But it's the more of the stories and like, when I read these stories, like Places in Angel Meadow and I sort of were never shown anything like that in school. It's only when I left school I started to get interested in things, like that, especially local, not necessarily local history, but stories. Manchester's full of them. Do you know what I mean? It's full of forgotten history and forgotten stories. And maybe one day I'd like to do something, but obviously it won't be anytime soon. But I've looked into it to see what the process is, and it's quite straightforward. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
But
yeah.
The thing is, like I say, I'm not educated to any sort of level. But when I'm sort of writing to do the voiceovers for my video, I find myself writing for 8. I have to cut it all back because and then I think I could have written a bleeding book on this. You know what I mean? Because it's that long.
Exactly.
It's that long.
Yeah.
I like it's a bit therapeutic for me when I write, and only through doing these.
Do you enjoy that writing process, Anne?
When it gets going, yeah. So I sort of have a bit of an idea how I want it to, like the one I'm doing at the minute. I've read about it and I know like basically the ins and outs of it, and then I've worded it myself in my own way. Do you know what I mean? But when I started to read it back, it sounded like the start of a book. Do you know what I mean? So I thought, I could, you know what I mean? Just stuff like that. But yeah, I would like to do it myself one day, but I'll just have to see what happens. But the process of doing it, mate, is quite straightforward.
Right, I'll make a mental note of that. And
Yeah,
I just noticed a flurry of jokes about you too are coming up in the chat there. And someone said they still haven't found what they were looking for. I wonder if that person moves in mysterious ways.
I've got just going through some of these now. Where are we? Says so. Where is it? I've just lost it. The Lead Mill was a massive club in Sheffield.
Sheffield, yeah,
the Lead Mill. So Ray, do you know a fella from the Isle of Man called Raz? He's always over watching bands and gigs like Rebellion.
No, I don't. No, it wouldn't surprise me if I've seen him, but personally, I don't know him. No.
Slurpy says 10cc originated from Prestwich, I think.
Yeah, well, Graham Gouldman, who was the bass player, he was from Prestwich, and it is quite a brilliant story about him. When he was sort of 15, coming up to 16, and he used to write songs. And what happened was, because he's from a Jewish family, his dad was hard working, and what happened? His dad was saying to him, "You need to go and do this job, do that job. When you leave school." And anyway, so he was in the house one day and he was writing some stuff on a piece of paper. So his dad said, "What are you doing?" He said, I'm writing a song for someone." And he went, You're writing a song for someone? What do you mean?" He said, "I've wrote this song for someone." And he said, "Let me have a look at it." So his dad gets hold of the piece of paper. Bearing in mind, he's like 15, Graham Gouldman. And he's looking at this and he's reading it. He says, "No, son, forget it. Just get yourself a day-to-day job and we'll take it from there." He says, "You won't be going anywhere with that." And the song that he wrote was No Milk Today for Urban Hermits.
Wow, no way.
It became a big hit for them.
Wow.
And then they also wrote For Your Love for the Yardbirds. This is before 10cc. And yeah, Prestwick's lad, yeah.
Goes to show, doesn't it? You never listen to what anyone, you know what I mean? Never listen to any naysayers. If I always think, like, I've had a lot of it since doing this channel over the years, and I've always just stuck to staying sort of true to myself. Do you know what I mean? I don't listen to any negativity. If I think it's right, I'll put it out or I'll run it. I always run it past my missus,
Yeah.
or I'll mention it to a few close friends, and they'll go, "Yeah, go for it." But I never listen to, like, look at what you've just said then about the songs that he's written there, and he sort of, his dad didn't think anything of it. But I just think you should never listen to people. You know what I mean? If you feel it's right, go for it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's it. I mean, it's like anything in life, isn't it? If you, if you want to do a long distance swim and you think it's right for you, you go for it. If you want to
Exactly.
be in a band, be it. If you, like what you do with your vlogumentaries, you go out there, you graft it, you do all your hard work, you do your writing, you do your editing, and yeah, you do take on board what people say, but you do it because you think it's right,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that I think that's what you should do. Because if you do listen to
100%.
something, if you do listen to people, there's not wrong with guidance, but if you listen to people saying, "Oh, don't go doing that. You'd be no good at that," well, that's the pure negativity. Sorry, but no, I'm not listening to you. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, when someone says as well, "Oh, you can't do this and you can't do that," that makes me even more want to not prove them wrong, but makes me dig my heels in a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can
Of
do anything. You can do anything if you put your
course you
mind to it,
can.
and with a bit of luck, of course, and hard work.
Yeah,
But yeah,
100%. Chris Davis says Noel Gallagher once said the Stone Roses opened the door, Oasis kicked it down.
I'll go with that. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, totally. Yeah, he's quite right there because they did. It's just that they went up a next level, Oasis, didn't they? As you know,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
just went from being a band that you think, wow, who are these lads? To
yeah,
suddenly they're playing in front of 200,000 pound, 200,000 people,
yeah.
and then they're playing big arenas, and then they're making bigger albums, and then of course their albums sell by the bucket load, and of course that makes them more money, and it goes
Mm,
on and on. So yeah, when you go back to that, yeah.
yeah.
So as unfortunately, the Stone Roses did get to them heights, but there's
Mm.
still a massive influence,
Oh, massive.
nonetheless.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah,
mate.
he's quite
And
right there. I
he
do agree
is,
with what you said
yeah,
there.
I agree too. And I think obviously Liam Gallagher's, you can tell he's heavily influenced by Ian Brown. You know, the stage presence and some of the things that he does is identical to. Well, that just goes to show like the kind of person and how influential Ian Brown is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Even his music today, he's another one that doesn't follow the agenda. He does what he wants to do. His music's not for everyone. To me, his music that he does now is like, I sort of call it like bedroom music. It's when you come home and you stick your headphones on and you get right into it. Do you know what I mean? And they're
Yeah.
not necessarily massive hits or anything. They're more personal. The personal albums. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Um,
the thing is, what he's got there, and he's got an ingredient there where it is, if it's not broken, and he'll stick with that formula.
yeah,
Obviously, he'll change it slightly with each album, but he's not having massive mega hits.
yeah,
I think if he had massive mega hits, it could have possibly ruined him musically
yeah,
as an artist.
yeah.
But because he kept there, and he'll continue to tour, he'll continue to record, he'll continue to do videos, and he'll continue to be an influence because he's on that level. Sometimes some people just fall off, and they become obscure. You don't
Mm,
hear them anymore. Sometimes they go too big where they think they're 10 men and they've got all this money and they're
yeah,
ruined. So it's balance, isn't it?
yeah,
It's just getting a balance. And I think
yeah,
Ian Brown's got that balance. Not for everyone, but he has got that balance, I think.
yeah. I think as well, like it's good to see, like on a personal level, like Manchester bands especially. Um, you don't tend to see them sell themselves out. Do you know, like certain artists that'll be in bands or whatever, and then they'll try and change with the era to stay relevant. Whereas you'll never see sort of Liam Gallagher on a rap track. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
just to stay relevant. And a lot of the bands in Manchester have always stayed true to their music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so.
So Mohammed says Roxy nightclub was amazing. Went to the Lead Mill. It was amazing. Slurpy says saw a band the other day and a turkey was on percussions. Apparently he had the drumsticks. Nick makes a good point. He says reggae.
Worse than mine now. He should bring out a drum book.
I know. You know what? He should. He should. Nick says reggae is bass heavy because it's produced to be played outdoor sound on the outdoor sound system, which lose a lot of the low frequencies in open air.
Yeah, well, as you can see, I love reggae because of different reasons, but because of the bass, because the bass is deep and it's dubby, and I love that. So reggae for me is it's a brilliant genre.
It is. It's a spiritual genre, reggae. I find.
Very much so. Yeah. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And with the frequencies and stuff, and they're doing all, they're playing outside a lot. You need it to be sort of booming.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah. So, Jill says, career-wise, what's your biggest achievement, Ray? So Jill, age 12 and a half from so it's from someone, yeah. So what's your biggest achievement, would you say?
Is she from Darwin?
Yes.
Yes. It's one of the, it's Jill. She'll be laughing at this. It's Jill from Out of the Paradox.
Yeah.
Your biggest ambition, did you say?
Your biggest achievement.
Biggest achievement. I think, apart from obviously, doing lots of recording over the years, of course, which I keep everything musically. I think I've really enjoyed that. I think just going out and just seeing how I can play on a tour.
Yeah.
How I can adapt and be on a tour bus one day, go and do a gig, go and do an hotel, get on the bus, go and do a gig, go and do an hotel, get on the bus, that kind of thing, because that's exactly what it's like. And then just to see what experience I can get. So to do that, because it took a lot of, I had to get my head down and do it, and grasp it. And then once you grasp, yourself, and once you grasp, it becomes easier.
Yeah, 100%.
You never take your foot off the pedal, but it just becomes a bit easier because you can do it.
Yeah.
And working with these people on stage, and then you're in the bus with them, and then you're in the hotel with them, and then it happens again the day after, and the day after, and the day after. So that's an achievement in itself. So I'd say touring, really.
Touring, brilliant.
Yeah.
So where are we here? It keeps jumping, because when there's a new comment, I'll slide up and then go to read where I sort of left off, and when there's a new comment, it just drops me back down to the bottom. Where am I? Biggest achievement it was, wasn't it? So Anthony Rocker said Lead Mill still's going strong. Saw Ian Brown doing practice gigs there. I only went in for a pint. God, I bet that was an experience, wasn't it? Just to turn up and Ian Brown's in there.
Yeah, I bet.
Slurpy says, the other day I saw the Australian Beatles. There was John, Paul, George and Dingo.
I love it. He's got to bring out a book.
He's got to, hasn't
he? Yeah. Just let him know, Anne. Let him know, Anne, that if it wasn't for Venetian blinds, it'd be curtains for all of us.
What I was going to ask you, so could you name us sort of your top 5? I'll go for your top 5 Manchester bands, and then I'm going to go for your top 5 all-time bands, so it can be from anywhere.
Okay, top 5 Manchester bands.
Yeah.
I won't do these in order, just top 5.
Yeah.
So of course, Joy Division, Buzzcocks, Slaughter and the Dogs. There's 3. think who else. I'd have to throw Oasis in there. Sorry, Stone Roses in there, of course, because of the influence. And when I went to the gig at the Winter Gardens, that was an amazing gig. And also, the band that I'm going to say now is they didn't even make an album, but they made only 3 singles. But they were a band called V2. I mean, of course, you got New Order as well. So I mean, but that's the most obvious one. But V2 only had a small area where they made 3 singles, and there were no more. But on me, they left quite an impression. Your dad likes V2, Man in the Box, and all that lot. So I'd say those. Yeah, I mean, I could go with New Order. I could go with quite a few others, but yeah. So yeah, Buzzcocks, Joy Division. I mean, Newcastle Automatic Daffodils. They're another great band from Manchester. And then you said you wanted me 5 favourite bands of all time.
Yeah, of all time. Not in any particular order. Again, just
any particular order. Well, my favourite band of all time is the Stranglers. So they're in there. Of course, REM.
Oh, I didn't have you down as an REM fan.
I love REM. Echo and the Bunnymen. Let me think, because there's a hell of a lot of bands. I'm gonna throw Joy Division in there. No, in fact, no, because I put that in the first one. I'm gonna put New Order in there in this bracket because of their musical output, you know, material wise. Who else is there? God, I mean, the obvious ones to say is the Beatles, and I do love the Beatles, and I do love the Stones, but it was only. I do like them, and then I go away from them. The ones that I've mentioned have stuck with me. They helped me through, like music helps you through great times and good and bad times.
Yeah, 100%.
One more band. What do you think? Oh God, it'd have to be someone like the Doors or someone like that. I could name 25.
Yeah,
but you said 5.
Yeah,
but that could change tomorrow.
Yeah.
That could change tomorrow. I think a lot of people are like that, really.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, massive Beatles fan myself. Love the Beatles. Love John Lennon solo stuff. Something about John Lennon really resonates with a lot of people, but there was something about him that was really special, and he was another one who was quite a spiritual person as well. Do you know what I mean? And he sort of, I don't know, his solo stuff really, I really did like. And like I say, a massive fan of the Beatles. Love the Doors. Love Jim Morrison. I think he was an absolute one-off.
So
Total one-off. Proper rock star. And he was just. It was mad. Like I was watching a thing about how he died not long ago, and there's a bit of a conspiracy, around it because he was found in the bath, weren't he?
Apparently, yeah.
But then they reckon he was moved and stuff, but an overdose and that. But yeah, Jim Morrison and the Doors had their own sound with the keyboards and everything. Do you know what I mean?
That's why I fell in love with the Stranglers. Not only with the bass, because they denied it for about 20 years that they were influenced by the Doors, and then after that they kind of went, yeah, well we were. Because you listen to early Stranglers, it just sounds like early Doors, not vocally but musically.
Yeah.
Just harping back to the first question about my 5 Manchester bands.
Yeah.
There is a band in there which Jill, if she's watching, will crucify me when I go back in the room, is The Fall.
The Fall, yeah.
Because, I mean, they had like 30-odd albums amongst live albums and stuff like that. And again, they were one of them bands that you're like Marmite, innit? You either love them or hate them. I've just seen something there from your daddy. He's put a question saying to ask me how many times I've seen the Stranglers. So me and Jill have got to see him next March, and that'll be my 59th time.
Wow. 59?
Yeah, and what it is they're playing at Blackpool Rebellion the day after my birthday, and I'm 60 next year.
No way.
So that'll be my 60th gig.
No way. God, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, because I first saw him at the Apollo when I was 13.
Wow.
So
have you got all your tickets from him? Have you got
I've
all
got
60?
I've got most of them because I went through a phase when I first started going to see punk bands. I didn't realise the significance of saving your stubby.
Yeah.
That only came a little bit later. So I saw a lot of punk bands. I mean, I saw like Killing Joke, Dead Kennedys, UK subs in 1980 when I was 15, post Joy Division, and I never kept a stubby.
Yeah.
I seen the Clash at the Apollo only once. I never kept a stubby, and then I thought, you know what? Someone says you should keep your stubbies, right? And from sort of early 80s, I kind of sort of did that. So I've not got every single stubby from every single Stranglers gig, but I've got a lot. I've got quite a lot. Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
the one that Ben showed me, you know, the one I said to you before when he went and watched Joy Division at the Mayflower Club. And he brought it in. He said, I've got the ticket still. And it's like a purpley blue, like lilac-y coloured ticket. And I was going to buy it off him. And he was all for letting me buy it. And I was going to frame it in my house, you know, put a little picture of him above, try and get the same picture of like the night they were on, and have that just below it and frame it. And then he brought it in, let me have a look at it, and I like held it and everything. But then he changed his mind, and it's just one of the things. You can't. It's sentimental, isn't it? Had it all that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get why people do collect stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Because the memories.
When he was in Chameleons Vox, the manager, he was originally the manager of the Chameleons before Vox, of course. He knew, he got to, when we started doing tours and doing gigs, he got to know about my collecting stubbies. So he says, Mondo, he said, I've got something for you. So I said, what's that? He says, well, I found out about you collecting the stubbies of bands that you go to see. So I said, right. He said, I've got a stubby for you of a band that you've not seen. Right. So I said, I should have said not seen when they first came round. So I went, right. Anyway, a few days later, we goes up to Middle and then we go and do this gig somewhere. And he gets in the van and he said, there you go. And what he gave me, it's on the wall, on the stairs, with all the other ticket stubs. He gave me a ticket of a gig, what Sex Pistols was supposed to have done in Rochdale in 1977 at the Champness Hall, right, near Cargo Studios. But what happened was the council, the local council got wind of it and said, no, you're not playing it. You're banning it. We'll ban you. So they banned Sex Pistols from doing this gig. So they got Elvis Costello and the Attractions to come in place of Sex Pistols. And Sony had 4 of these tickets.
Wow.
With still the little stub intact. And they were 75p. And he gave me one of these tickets. He gave me one of these tickets. It's a blue ticket, and it's got Sex Pistols, the price, Champness Hall, 1977, and it was a gig that they never did.
And have you've got that? Wow.
Yeah, it's in my frame.
I tell you what, Ray, that's a lot. You're going to be sat on a lot of money there for that.
Well, I mean, someone saw it on Facebook and said they looked into it a little bit. I don't know how true it was, and I'm not calling them a liar, but they said they saw that ticket value for 160 quid.
God.
Whether it's worth less or more, I don't know, but it was given to me because the person who knew how passionate I was not only to going to gigs, but keeping the stubbies. So I would never sell it. And
no, it's sentimental, isn't it? It means something to you. That, and the fact it was, what did you say it was? 75p.
So yeah. And it's if you saw the ticket, you think it was brand new, apart from obviously the lettering.
Yeah. Well, it's a good job you didn't fold that one up, innit?
Which is a bit, mate. Yeah. Yeah, when he gave me that ticket, I just put it in my pocket, very, very carefully.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you as well, mate. Sorry if you've got a shoot or anything like that, just let me know. Don't want to keep you too long. But how do you sort of, obviously, Manchester music was massive back in its heyday. Sort of the last major band obviously was like Oasis. How do you sort of think that it shapes up today? You know, with the likes of, say, the Cortinas are sort of flying the flag for Manchester at the minute, and you've got the Blossoms that are obviously from Stockport, but they're the two that are sort of flying the flag. And I know they're not really everyone's cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? They're not like an Oasis that blew the socks off everybody. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I think, I would imagine, I mean, with COVID, that dampened a lot of reasons to form or be in a band because you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But of course, things come and go, and that got lifted. And I'm sure even right now, there's 4 lads or 4 girls somewhere who maybe in 2 or 3 years' time are going to be absolutely massive. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they are or when, but I'm sure there's always bands there on the periphery doing stuff.
Yeah.
With the likes of Blossoms and them bands, yeah, I get where you're coming from with that. But yeah, we've not had a Stone Roses, we've not had a Fall, we've not had an Oasis, we've not had a Joy Division since them bands have came onto the scene.
Yeah.
There's been bands that have been influenced by him, but nothing directly near. And I'm sure there's something on the corner on. But
Yeah. I think there has to be.
I'd like to see another music explosion in Manchester. I'd love it.
Yeah, I would, mate. It might just be me thinking this, but like, obviously, in Manchester at the minute, you can go into Manchester. It's such a cauldron of so many different cultures and different people. That are obviously loads of them are studying at the universities. Loads of them are like, if you go in Manchester, there's a lot of like people from down south. There's people from Liverpool. They all seem to come to Manchester. But when these bands were sort of coming out, there was proper Manchester bands, and maybe we're not getting that next wave come through because they're not really there. You know what I mean? They're not from the streets of Manchester. Oasis were like Burnage lads. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stone Roses, people like that, they were all off the little estates. And obviously, as well, with the change in music, like, it's not an indie scene anymore, really. It's a lot of there's young people that I work with that listen to like grime and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to a degree, I don't mind some of it, if I'm being honest. But even if there was a big, massive band that came out now, I think they have to wait for that wave again. Do you know what I mean? When the music changes, and it might slide into a bit of indie rock, and then the next wave of bands could come through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, you've still got that. You still got the resonance of bands from 30 years ago still doing stuff like New Order. I know Simply Red are touring in 2025. Certain members of 10cc are doing solo stuff.
Yeah.
The likes of The Fall, who had all that 30-odd years of music, of course, Mikey Smith passed away. You still got Steve Diggle doing Buzzcocks. So you still got the remnants of these earlier influences still doing stuff, but there's nothing young coming up as yet.
Yeah. It's like Tony Wilson said, didn't he? It's like the new wave, called it new wave, because it's like peaks and troughs with music. Different genres come in. Rap goes in, and then all of a sudden it's pop music, and then it's indie again. And I think the next band that should explode from Manchester, that hopefully they'll ride on the crest of that wave. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sure they will. Yeah,
and then
I'm sure
bands like I think the next massive band that would have come through was obviously the ones that sadly died. Do you know the what were they called?
Viola. I know the ones you mean.
Viola Beach.
That's it. Yeah.
And when you listen to their stuff, you think there's tinges of Stone Roses in that, and there's a tinge of, but it's like modern indie, and it had a great vibe to it. Do you know what I mean? They would have been the next ones, I think, that were gonna take it by storm.
I can get that, and because I heard great things about them. I mean, it was very tragic what happened to them, but I heard great things where they were going with the music and stuff, and they had them influences in there with their own sound. But unfortunately, that tragedy was terrible. But so you need. There's a band called Pastels who are supposed to be sort of doing the rounds and sort of started as up and coming.
Right.
Kind of very Verve-ish, from what I've been told.
Right. Okay.
Because I mean, well, the Verve again. I mean, I know they're a great Manchester band from Wigan, but you look what they did, and they were huge, weren't they?
Yeah, massive.
Then, of course, Richard went into his solo career, and the band fell apart. And is he another Verve round the corner? Who knows?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, like you say, mate. There's 4 lads or 4 girls waiting there to just take it by storm. State, I keep missing a girl. State says she says Primal Scream, bands like that from Glasgow,
Yeah.
massive
Great.
bands.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read a few more of these out, mate.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So my dad says, "Oh, the old web." He said they did their own thing and never followed anyone.
Well, they did, yeah, very much so. One of my favourite bands from Manchester because of that. You couldn't pigeonhole them.
No, and they really had their own sound, didn't they? Oh, they do have their own sound.
Why, and the reason why, because they had their own sound, was great. But it was also because I got to know Martin a little bit, and I met him a few times, and he's a really nice bloke. And he said it was like a bit of a sword of Damocles, because even though we had our own, you know, a mixture of rock, a mixture of punk, a mixture of reggae, and a bit of hip hop, you couldn't pigeonhole us. But record companies were saying, "Where's the biggest single?"
Yeah.
And we said, "Well, we're good enough to do what we do as a band and albums and singles, but you're not going to get a #1 single off us. You're going to get decent music, but it's going to be different from everybody else. We don't follow Oasis. We don't follow Echo and the Bunnymen. We don't follow XTC. We don't follow Simple Minds. We don't follow Primal Scream. We're just Audio Web." And that's why they only really made 2 albums and a cluster of singles.
Yeah, I went and seen them with my dad. You was there actually, I think.
It was there, yeah. At the
was it the Academy?
The Academy, yeah.
And they were a band that I sort of think, God, like there was amazing live, brilliant band live. Do you know what I mean? Another band as well that really sticks out. It was only like 20 quid to go and see them. But I thought when I seen them, they're like not like a massive band, but was what were they called? Twisted Wheel.
Oh yeah, from Oldham, yeah.
Really good live. Really good live. And the place went absolutely mad for him.
I know people have seen them a few times. I'm
Oh,
the
mate.
band on the wall, and well, the problem with that band, I think they made 2, maybe 3 albums, but the problem with that is drugs got involved.
Yeah, I believe so, mate.
And the band imploded because of it.
Yeah, sad that really, isn't it?
Yeah, but they had that energy.
Yeah, I think the drummer's working with RJ's at the minute on.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's doing some stuff with him. I think it's a drummer. But when we went, I went with Jace to see him, and I weren't really expecting much. You know what I mean? I just went along with it. Knew a few of the songs. I thought, yeah, I'll go, and I was blown away by them. They were so good live, mate. Really good.
Yeah. I've got their first album, which is a brilliant album. And I know sometimes when bands do albums, what happens is they knock out a fantastic album, but then they can't replicate it live.
Yeah.
And they were one of them bands that, even though they didn't go to great heights, what they did is when you listen to that first album, example, and you go and see them to say, it blew you away because it was just a level up from the album.
Yeah.
Where you can get a band who will make an absolute storming album, which has got the greatest production, but they can't do it live because they've overlaid or overproduced or whatever. It's that's why I've always loved punk, and because for different reasons, but because it's like it's that energy.
100%.
It doesn't have to be 90 miles an hour, because punk was never like that until we went to the hardcore scene. But if you listen to Nevermind the Bollocks, right, from track 1 to 12, they're all mid-tempo. There's nothing fast. Everyone goes, "Oh, punk music, 90 miles an hour." It wasn't. Yeah, there was some of it, but if you listen to that album and listen to the melodies of Steve Jones and John singing, he's using his voice as an instrument in itself.
Mm.
The melodies are fantastic, and it
Yeah.
is not because it's Sex Pistols, because of the work, the body of work, and the music. And like you say, it's all mid-tempo. It's fantastic. It really is, and it's the only one album that they made. It was a massive influence, and
Yeah.
you get bands that are like that. You know, when you listen, if you listen to the first Oasis album again, it's all mid-tempo. Definitely, maybe it is all mid-tempo.
Yeah, that's what I always love.
Head Strinker, which came out about 2 years later, is proper fast in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I love about, do like about punk music is it's raw. It's still, when you hear some of the punk stuff, like especially and the new, like when you hear an album's first new album, they're sort of putting it out there, but they don't know how they're going to be, you know, perceived by people. And like you say, it sort of loses over time. They'll produce another album, and it becomes more of not making an album anymore for the love of it. It's to please people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you say, like you're saying about Head Shrinker there, it's just a proper throwback punk song that I think by Oasis.
It's just in your face. It's in your face. And you know,
Liam's vocals on that as well. You know what I mean? I just think he's in his prime there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a part in that song where he mentioned the word going. There's 2 words actually, going around. And when he said around, it's like his voice is. It's like his voice is like an elastic band, and it snaps, and you can hear a little creak in it because he's straining that much to get the feeling over. And you know, it's fantastic. I think he did it in about 3 takes.
Yeah. I've listened to some of the. I've watched all the documentaries and that, and I've seen them like recording in studios in Wales. I think it was in Wales where they had did one of their albums or a couple of their albums, and his vocals at that time, like 92, 93, 94. God, his vocals were on a different level. Nothing like, he doesn't sound anything like he does today. He was obviously a lot younger. His vocals were fresh, but he carried that attitude in his voice. Do you know what I mean? That raw attitude and that council estate kid just come out of him, and it was
that's it. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's like when you're talking about council estates and you listen to, you know, Sean Ryder and the say Squirrel and G-Man, which is the first album, and then Bummed. Sean, and he's admitted himself, he's never had the greatest of voices, but what he has got is an absolute lyrical genius.
Yeah, 100%.
Because when you listen to his vocals, it's like,
yeah, I agree, mate.
Where that come from?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
he's not the greatest of voice. And how they look and how they deliver lyrically.
Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%. My dad says you remember the Wax Collection. They had something special about them. I think they were on they were on before one of the bands. I think it was that Puppet Rebellion.
Right.
So years ago. But they were another band. But I think a couple of their members was from Twisted Wheel when they split up.
Right.
But they looked like they were going to do something then. They had their own sound and they were good.
Ask your dad about the band that he was in.
I know all about it because I used to listen to him. Yeah.
They were destined for big things, that band of Mullies.
There was. Have you heard some of it?
I haven't had the pleasure, but what it is, he did with great aplomb when he mentions about the band and where it could have gone. He said it was destined for great things, right?
So yeah, like bands there that we've not even mentioned that are from Manchester, like James and Manchester's Best Kept Secret. You know what I mean? Massive. I know, but they always sort of slip the radar, James. But they were massive. Do you know what I mean? They were huge bands, real huge bands. Elbow as well. Sort of some of the early Elbow stuff's really good. But yeah.
Well, I mean, like with Elbow, it took them 20 years before they got success.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when the bass player used to work behind the bar in the Roadhouse while he was still in Elbow, to make ends meet. And yeah, I remember listening to an interview with Guy Garver, again from Presswitch, and he said, before we started to get on cellar and do big tours, took us 20 years.
Yeah.
Like going back to Sheffield with Pulp. I mean, John Peel was a big advocate of playing Pulp in the early 80s when no one heard of them. And then, of course, when they got really big, everyone thought it was a new band. And John Peel said, I had them in session in 1981.
Yeah. Yeah.
This band took another 20 years before they got any success.
It's
So
great.
the thing is, I remember someone saying to me, I know you, when I first started getting into bands, I know you're not want to be a pop star. It's none of that. But he said, if you do get success later on in life, then obviously that's great. But just do the music and just believe in yourself and keep doing it. And that's what I've done. And that's what some of these Oasis did. Oasis was shy. Stone Roses was shy. But they kept at it.
Yeah.
They kept at it. And suddenly they got breaks through right place, right time, right venue, right year, whatever. And they just went on and became, massive as a group or influential as a group.
So what I'll do, Ray, I'm just going to fire a couple of little quick questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
All right, mate.
But who are your biggest influences, bass players?
I could name a lot, but I'll only go with I'll go with three of them. I'd say, well, obviously John Jack Burnell from the Stranglers, Peter Hook, from Joy Division, and of course New Order, and now is Peter Hook and the Light. His bass playing's phenomenal. And I'd say, even though I don't play funk bass, I've never been in a band where I have to play funk bass, but I mean, there's Andy Raw out of the Smiths, and the full lineup from Thin Lizzy, there's Lemmy from Motorhead. And I could go on and on and on. But Mark King, as a musician, before level 42 got really poppy, which they did, and you can't blame them for that. But up to that point, sort of from 1980 to 1984, them early albums by Level 42, the bass playing on that is unbelievable. And also, he was a great songwriter and a vocalist. So he was doing 3 in 1, and that takes some doing. Whereas Peter Hook is doing great now in Peter Hook and the Light with his singing. And he's become a really good singer, and obviously still a great bass player. And John Jack Burnell still writes and sings in the Stranglers, but predominantly is the bass player. So for Matt King to do all 3 at once for the last 40 years takes some doing.
100%.
So I'd say them 3. I could go on, but just off the cuff. Them 3, very much so.
And obviously, you've been all over the world in bands, and you must have crossed paths with so many famous people as well. But who is the one that stands out, where you thought you was a bit starstruck by meeting them?
It'd have to be. I've not met a lot of well-known people really, but the one where I've gone and I've actually met him twice is Hugh Cornwell, who was the original singer of the Stranglers. His vocals on Golden Brown. His voice was on Peaches, Nice and Sleazy. And I've met him on 2 occasions, and he's even though he's a guitarist and not a bass player, still to meet him I was awestruck, and I got a book what I bought of his which he signed for me. And I remember going to see him. He did a gig in 1997 at Sankey Soap in Ancoats, and it was a solo album what he was promoting. And me and my mate, he lives in Arizona now, from Mosman, he was a bass player and a big Stranglers fan. We went to the gig and we watched this gig in Sankey Soap, and he was sat in the corner after the gig with in a small cordoned off area. And his manager come over and says, "Can I help you?" And I just said, "Can we go and meet Hugh?" He went, "Give me a minute." So she come back, she said, "Yeah, he'll have 10 minutes. Come, you want to come over and say hello? And we know as soon as he sat down, he said, right, lads, do you smoke? So we said, yes. So he gave us a Benson and Hedges. He said, right, what are you having? And he bought us a part of lager each.
No
and
way.
he gave us 15 minutes. And I didn't go down the road of what's your best Strangler song. He just talked to him like I'm talking to you. It was absolutely brilliant.
Was it?
So they always say you should never meet your heroes, but because sometimes it can be not very nice. He was a complete opposite of that. He was lovely. He was brilliant.
Oh, great stuff.
So yeah, he's I'd say it's not the most famous one, really. But yeah,
unbelievable. So it seems like just like you say, a lot of these people that you can sort of cross paths with, that they're not what they seem to be sometimes, and you get the odd one that is a genuine normal guy. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's all about, isn't it? When people say, "Oh, I met him," and normally they'll say, "God, he was dead arrogant. He was this, he was that." And then when you meet someone that is a celebrity or a famous person, and they're actually down to earth and humble, you think, God, I was right about him all along. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Your dad does mention about the Salford Urban Guerrillas, the band that he was in.
The Salford Urban Guerrillas?
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
He said the band constituted one lad on a drum kit with a snare drum and a hi-hat and one cymbal, and a guitar with 2 strings. Your dad was the front man, apparently.
Well, he's always the front man, isn't he? Right, Ray. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, mate. I want to thank you. Honestly, thank you for your time.
Thanks. I really enjoyed it.
I've loved it, mate. And you're like an encyclopedia on music, not just Manchester music, but music. And everyone in the chat, they've loved it. They're all messaging now. And it's been a great night. But where can we find you then, Ray? Where you're on Facebook, and what's the radio? Where can
I'm
they
on
catch
Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and the radio station is North Manchester 106.6 FM. That's the website for it.
Yeah.
The information's all on there. So.
And what days are you on there, Ray?
Sorry, mate.
What days are you on there then?
I do a Tuesday show 5 till 7, a Wednesday show 5 till 7. The Tuesday show is more alternative, sort of post-punk. So it's stuff like Sit Up Explodes, Echo and the Bunnymen, The Cure, that kind of stuff. Obviously, the stuff on Wednesday is the old school punk.
Yeah.
And then on Friday is the M40 show. The M40 being the postcode for Harperray, Monsell and Moston. That's why it's and also the radio stations in that postcode. And I've also got an M40 group on Facebook as well. If anyone wants to join that, they're more than willing to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll drop the links to them, Ray. In this, after I've gone live here, I'll drop all the links to it, and hopefully some more people will be tuning in and everything. But honestly, mate, thanks a lot for your time. I know you're really busy, and I appreciate it.
I've really loved every second there. I was saying to Jill, I'm really looking forward to it. And I said
brilliant.
to you, Dad, it's going to be top, and absolutely brilliant.
Do you know what we'll do, mate? Well, in the future, when we're all free, me, you, and my dad, we'll do a freeway live. We'll go live.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and we can rip into him about Greenstone and the Salford Guerrillas or whatever they were called.
The Salford Urban Guerrillas. Yeah. SUG, as Molly might put it. SUG, the big SUG. Salford Urban Guerrillas.
Well, thanks a lot, mate. I really appreciate it. And catch up with you soon, Ray.
Right.
Thanks a lot, pal.
Take care, mate.
Right back at you, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Cheers, mate.
So there we have it. That was Ray. I'm going to stay on for another 10-15 minutes, but I do need to go to the toilet. And I'm going to go and get another can because I'm not in work tomorrow. So I've got 2 days off. So if anyone wants to stick around for another 10-15 minutes and you've got anything to ask, anything at all, just drop it in the comment section. But just give me a little moment. I just need to go to the toilet. I'll be 2 seconds. Don't laugh at me, Crocs. Hey. Hey. You got the cat. You just bring it here. Back. Still got 23 people on, which ain't bad. So how good was that tonight? Wasn't it great? Learned so much there from Ray. He's a wealth of knowledge on Manchester music and music in general. Really likable person, and he's just an all-round great guy. And he's been in some great bands and toured all over, like America and around parts of Europe. But this is why we get people like Ray on, because he's full of knowledge and stories, and just like I say, he's an all-round great guy. So I will leave a link down below to all the Ray's stuff where you can find him. He's mainly on Facebook, but if you ever get a chance and he's on, stick him on in the car on the way home or something, because he does the prime slots on the radio station. So yeah, good stuff. But yeah, it's been a good night. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed you all chipping in the chat, and the jokes have been absolutely flying tonight. All dad jokes. With Slurpee and my dad and other people all chipping in with the jokes, but it's been really good. I'm just going to read some of these. So if I haven't already got round to reading, I really do apologise for not catching some of you in the chat. So I'll try and go through some now. So basically, everyone's sort of saying it was a really good night, and some of you are chipping off to bed now. But a great night. Someone just said, gutted I've missed it. You can always watch it back. It'll be on the channel, so you can always, if you do miss it, you can always rewatch back. It's not a problem. Many thanks. It was brilliant. Thanks, Ray. Brilliant chat. Mandy says, thanks, Ant and Ray, for the chat. Lovely spending time here. That's Mandy all the way in South Africa. So thank you, Mandy, for tuning in. Another good one. Great as always. Fantastic night. Fantastic night. Going back to your book idea, please give it serious consideration, mate. Do you know what? It is something, Chris, that I've been, like I say, when I start writing for me videos that I do on YouTube, I sort of take time out to write them how I want them to sound. You know what I mean? So, but then I can find myself typing away for ages, and I'm thinking I can't. There's going to be an hour's worth of me chatting here, so I have to sort of strip it back to like 3 or 4 minutes. But it sort of goes off into some sort of story sometimes, and I sort of can put myself into positions where I can imagine being, say, that person in Angel Meadow that I'm speaking about and what they would have witnessed, and sort of like a fly on the wall. But I find myself writing for ages. I did have a little idea. I'm not going to say too much about it though, but I had an idea of a bit of a made up story and book about someone that was a little boy living in Angel Meadow. But he was, I can't say too much about it, but basically it was about this little kid in Angel Meadow that lost like a ball, and it went into the River Irk, I think it did. And he was deaf and stuff like that, and he didn't hear everyone saying, "No, don't go in," and like a big accident happened. It's going to sound a lot better when I actually get round to doing something like that, but I've got stuff that I could even write about personal experiences and stuff like that. But the process of doing these books is actually, I thought you'd have to get loads of people involved to do it, and you actually don't. It's really quite straightforward to do, and I don't think they take much of a cut until you basically put the book out there and it starts to sell. But I would love to do something with a book at some point. Sort of the people that I read about are sort of true life things, like Dean Kirby's book on Angel Meadow, and I like autobiographies and things like that, and biographies about people's actual lives. So maybe one day I could put something in motion when I get some time and do it. But yeah, my dad always lowers the tone, doesn't he? I hope he doesn't fart I hope he don't fart when I nips at toilet. There's a time and place for this, do you know what I mean? And On Alive isn't one of them. Ray's a top lad, again, brilliant. So I want to thank everyone. Like I say, I'm back out tomorrow. I'm filming tomorrow. Booked a couple of days off so I can go and film it and hopefully get it done. Well, I will. I'll make sure it's done in time for Halloween. And it'll hopefully set the atmosphere and tone for if you wanted to chill out on Halloween night and you want something a bit dark to watch and a bit creepy, then this one will be the one for you to actually watch. And then straight after that, following is the one that I'm halfway through editing at the minute about Prince Lobengula, Salford's very own Prince. For anyone that didn't know, I'll give you a quick overview. I sort of touched on the story about 5 years ago on my channel. It was only brief though, but since then a lot has happened, and I've done more research. I've got access to newspaper archives, and the story's just evolved over the years. And I kept thinking, God, there's more to this. There's more to it. And then over the years, I've built a bit of a catalogue up about him, and I think now's the right time to do another video on him, but base a full video rather than just maybe 6 or 7 minutes, what I did last time, and actually do a full video on Prince Lobengula, the Prince of Salford. Now, basically, he came over. He was in basically a tribe in Africa, and there was a guy called Frank Phillis who was basically your P.T. Barnum of the day. And what he did, he got this tribe, and he was watching them reenact the scenes. They would do like dances and chants, and they'd reenact scenes from their ancestors when they had battles. And basically, he took that and made it into a big, massive production, and he toured it all the way around England. And when it actually hit Manchester, he fell in love. The main star of the show was a guy called Prince Lobengula, and he basically fell in love with a local girl, and it didn't work out. And then fell in love with another local girl, and he stayed with her and had kids. Now, with him being over here, he sort of got privileges because he said he was the son of a king from Africa, and people bought into it. He had the right to vote. This was going back to 1899. He won the right to vote, which was unheard of because he was obviously a different race and colour to everyone back then, especially in Salford, when society was much different. And he ended up settling on Whit Lane, where I grew up in Salford, and he ended up settling and living in this house on Whit Lane, which is gone now. And he actually worked down the pit. So he's gone from being a prince in a tribe to being the star attraction of this massive production, to falling in love with a local girl and then working down Agecroft Colliery in the pit because the sort of production left, the circus like left the town, but he stayed and he had to make a living. And he sort of got a job at the colliery and he was working down the pit. And then he sadly sort of declined and he started to drink a lot and he was always in trouble. There was loads of reports of him in the paper being drunk and disorderly and making a bit of a show of himself. But he was a charismatic sort of character. And the stories that I've read about him are just the funny stories. And what he did is, I personally think that he got, don't forget the era and the culture, the drinking culture of the miners that used to go down in the pit all day. They would come up after not seeing daylight, obviously really parched because it's so dry down there, thick head to toe, black head to toe. And then the first thing they'd do is to go for a few pints after work. And some of them just drank all the time and then would go home, have the tea, and then do the same thing every single day. And by the sounds of it, that's what's happened with him. I think he's ended up trying to get involved with the culture of where he was living, going down the pit and the mine, and then the lads have invited him out. But he's gone from being this character at the sort of circus, so to speak, and the star attraction to then working down the pit at Agecroft Colliery. And he's like turned to drink and the drink's got out of control. He's made a show of himself so many times. And he sadly contracted TB and he died at the age of 38. And he left behind his wife and I think 4 of his children. And when he died in 1913, his wife died and his kids died shortly after. They all contracted TB. And there was, I think his wife and kids were sent to Irwell House, which I've documented before, sent into Irwell House because it was a tuberculosis unit, tuberculosis hospital. And he's basically passed away. They've died shortly after. But one of his sons, his eldest son, he was called Peter Lobengula as well, named after his dad. And he died at 70-odd-year-old, lived a normal life, and he ended up living in Moss Side. But sadly, that's where the story sort of ends. But his grave is in Agecroft Cemetery. And it's just this, there's a row of graves either side, and then sort of in the centre is his grave. It's a standout headstone where he was buried. And I sort of say in the video that there was a lot of mixed reception about him, and people actually said that he wasn't a prince and that it was all a bit of a hoax to sort of get him places in life, you know, being a bit of an exemption, that he was a prince and he should have been treated differently. So people seem to think it was a hoax, and then other people believed the story. But either way, it's a mad tale, another crazy, forgotten piece of Salford history, that Salford had its very own prince. And I sort of say in the video, regardless if he was the prince or not, I'd like to think that Salford did have its very own prince. And I'm basically dedicating a full video to him and his life. And I go back to the spots where he worked, the spots where he lived, and then obviously where he ended up in the cemetery. And I say that we're sort of retracing his footsteps and living a bit in the day of the life of him, just for them brief few moments. But it's a sad story, but one that needs to be told into more detail. And I'm sure people will enjoy it. It's a fascinating story. There's actually a book on it. And there's a few other things thrown in between. So I'm halfway through editing in that. But I'm thinking if I go and edit tomorrow, I go and film tomorrow in Ian, then I can try and knock this video out for Halloween. And then shortly after that, I'll release The Prince of Salford. So Nick says getting published can be a slow process, but that's how it is. Just start writing and return to it the following day. Learn about grammar, first person, third person, and who narrator, etc. Brilliant point, mate. Sheridan says, wow, the idea of a book sounds amazing. Go with it and you can do it. Thanks a lot, Sheridan. Sad story. It really is, isn't it? Slurpy's back, just popped back on. Great live. See you soon. Thanks for joining, mate. Thanks for coming on. And hopefully, mate, somewhere down the line, hopefully in before Christmas and that, if you're free again, you're always more than welcome to come on and we can have a bit of a catch up and come back on alive and we'll have another beer chat and sink a few ales, eh? So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I am going to go now, but thanks everyone for tuning in. I will drop a link to Ray and his radio station, I'll drop it in the comments of this video, and go over and check his channel out. His page is on Facebook, and like you say, you can catch him basically every other day, Monday to Friday, on the radio. And he's a great guy, a wealth of knowledge, mad Manchester music. And check his band out too. His band's called YKO, and you can find them on YouTube. And I'll put a link to that as well. So I want to thank Ray for coming on, giving me his time. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank you lot for coming on and showing your support once again, all chipping in with the chat. It's been a great chat. There's been loads of jokes. It's been funny. And you're amazing. You really are. You're really the backbone of this channel. You really are. So thank you so much for taking the time out. And if you haven't and you're rewatching it, then thank you for taking the time out to watch it again. Cheers, Judd. So I'm just going to say, enjoy the last bit of your sort of Sunday. I hope you've all had a good Sunday dinner and you've all got your bellies full. And put your feet up now because we're all in work tomorrow. Well, I'm off tomorrow, but mainly all in work. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Cheers, Ben. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. Cheers. I always forget how to end it. Take care. Bye.